How did horror games go from this to this?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the f, man?
Before you type in the comments saying all horror games were scarier because we played them as kids, I don't fully agree. I played most of the old horror games just a couple years ago. However, even as an adult, it still scares me. So far, famous horror game franchises like Fatal Frame, Siren, Condemned, and Silent Hill are considered dead for so many players. Only Resident Evil is one of the few that is still able to stand strong over the years. So, what makes modern horror games miss in the making?
2 hours of horror, my ass. It's more like 6 hours of agony.
One important factor that really makes the old horror games look so much scarier is obviously how the old video game in general looks in the past. Limited graphics make the visual look weird or uncanny. It's not bad, it's just uncomfortable. If you are someone that works around visual effects, you probably already heard about the word Uncanny Valley. This word was first introduced by Masahiro Mori. Masahiro Mori is a Japanese roboticist noted for his pioneering work in the fields of robotics and automation. The Asimo robot was designed by one of his students. Masahiro Mori first introduced the concept of Uncanny Valley in 1970 from his book titled Bukimi no Tani. The article forwarded the hypothesis that as robots become more human-like, they appear more familiar until a point is reached at which subtle imperfections of appearance make them look eerie. Basically, it refers to the unsettling feeling when something is almost but not quite lifelike, making it look weird.
I don't like this guy.
What the f?
The same also goes for video games. The low polygon graphics and the low resolution texture makes it unintentionally creepy. Take an example of this cutscene in Silent Hill 2.
See? I'm real.
A little facts about this pre-rendered scene was created by Takayoshi Sato. The stiff facial expressions are made by hand. Motion capture is only used for body movement. The reason is because he wants to create more details on the character's facial expression. He intentionally creates asymmetrical faces to create realistic feelings. So, we know for sure that this scene is computer generated. We are able to feel it. But our mind tells us the facial expressions, it's close to how real humans look. But something wasn't right. Something makes it disturbing. Another example is the game Siren, released in 2003. The game that was also directed by the director of the first Silent Hill games, Keiichiro Toyama. Instead of using polygonal transformation, the game chose to use images of real human faces that were captured from 8 different angles and superimposed onto the character models, an effect similar to projecting film onto the blank face of a mannequin. It tries to give an emotion and soul to the game characters, but at the same time, these unusual effects comes very unsettling. This is one thing that newer releases are often hard to achieve, because today's game graphics have so many details, so realistic, we don't get the eerie feelings of the environment or even the monster. Of course, it's not a bad thing, technology is always evolving, but the more details you add, the more mystery you take away. It just makes it less scary because we know exactly what we are facing. Our imagination doesn't need to fill the gap.
Okay. I guess this is creepy, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at.
To further improve the uncomfortable feeling, all horror games often use subtle and slow building tension instead of using jump scare. Jump scare sure will be the easiest way to scare the player, but it's so cheap and sometimes overused.
Oh, watch out for the jump scare. Doff!
It's a little bit controversial, but my guess on why newer horror games use so much jump scare on its gameplay is maybe to gain the attention of many streamers or YouTubers to play the game. So you probably know the rest about free advertisement. There are still good newer release games that use jump scare quite right. But if we should compare to how old horror games create tension, it's by using the atmosphere of the environment. It's not only about dark and blood. The way the developer creates a unique representation on what makes us as human beings able to feel fear is the key point here. From the foggy town in Silent Hill, an abandoned house in Fatal Frame, a research lab in Dino Crisis, or the mansion full of zombies in Resident Evil. These environments create such eerie feelings. It's not only about the zombies, the monsters, or the ghosts that creates the tension, but also your surroundings. In this internet era, We see a lot of scary creatures found footage all over the internet, even though it's obviously fake, compared to the pre-internet era where urban legends and horror stories are considered more believable and scarier because we are only able to imagine the stories in our minds. So it's hard for us to be scared of such bizarre creatures or monsters in video games because we see them all the time now. Yes, monster design really helps to make the game scary, but I think it's better to just have a very good story, not just a random stories that only scare a 7-year-old kid. I miss the dark stories and plot twists that developers back then created to shock us while playing the game. Even if it's as simple as a piece of paper or a scene, the developer wants to tell you the story before you arrive and what terrifying stuff will await you.
This is like one of those games that is so bad that it's... Oh, it's still shit actually, never mind.
The gameplay mechanic in this older title also gave some sort of this sense of helplessness and disorientation. The fixed camera angle, the annoying tank controls, the limited visibility is making us as a player feel less in control and more anxious. We can see the difference between how tank controls feel with today's game control in a remake of this game, such as Resident Evil 2, 3 and 4 remake. In the remake, player movements are really fast. You can skip zombies easily. But in the old Resident Evil, you need to choose to fight, but also mean wasting bullets, or try to dodge the zombies but have a chance of getting hit and wasting health items. These split-second choices could create stress and anxiety. I personally didn't quite like tank control because it feels so clunky. But some people argue that tank control is better and beneficial to the gameplay and tone of the games. Save points are also often really far between one and another, making us more careful and tense while playing. Gladly, most of the time before we face a boss battle, we will get an ammo and save points. And what about a tutorial? Forget with the tutorials. We need to search for our own maps. Do you need a hint? The only hint you'll get is not to die. If you want to walk through, just read the handbooks. This lack of hand-holding forces us to do more exploration, discovering mechanics and story progression. But at the same time, we need to stay careful. I still remember playing Silent Hill 3 for the first time, asking myself if I should follow this roller coaster track that has a high chance of killing me. I don't want to die just 5 minutes into the game. This confusion and the feelings of helplessness make the game much more memorable.
Bro, this game was $3. I didn't even get a sound effect.
Silence is the best horror music, using silence in the right moments able to create tension, the feelings of being haunted, and significantly improve the game atmosphere. The Clock Tower is one of many great examples that using silence is the perfect way to amplify the horror atmosphere. You rarely hear music in this game. In the midst of confusion to solve the point-and-click puzzle, the silence will make your brain imagine something terrifying was following you and they might show up. But music in old horror games is just so freaking good too. Not gonna lie, today's horror games music is absolutely terrifying. But the feelings you get by listening to that old synthesizer is just so different. I mean, listen to this. Subtle ambient noises, haunting melodies, and sudden jarring sounds kept players on edge. The music often signaled danger or built tension, creating an immersive audio experience that amplified the fear. Akira Yamaoka, the music composer for Silent Hill 2, saying that he wants to create a sound that surprises the player, something that would challenge the player's imagination, and to create a physical reaction to the player. I mean, this guy clearly knows how to give someone a heart attack using only his music. Further, he explained that he knows how to use silence as another way to produce a sound. That means it's not just what you saw and heard that scares you, but also what you don't. So whether you are a long-time fan revisiting old haunts or a new player looking for a different kind of thrill, classic horror games offer an experience that stands the test of time. You discover why sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones left to the imagination.